I want to turn now to senior researcher at the International Institute for Counter-Terrorism, Dr. Michael Barak, head of the research and global jihad and Palestinian terrorism. Thank you very much, Dr. Barak, for joining us. So, unfortunately, Europe is way too familiar with Islamist terror. But the question being, is there understanding that this is the same terror that Israel is now facing?
Al-Qaeda and ISIS for more than 10 years have calling for lone wolf attacks in the West. This is not something new. It's Al-Qaeda, ISIS, are disseminating propaganda material in different languages, German, Spanish, English, French, etc., trying to recruit Muslims who have been radicalized, who lived in the West, who try to target European and also Jewish and Christian targets. So this is not something new, but when we have a conflict which is portrayed in the Middle East, conflicts in the Middle East that are being portrayed as a religious conflict, like Hamas is doing and ISIS and Al-Qaeda, this is accelerate more radicalization and the motivation of radicalized Muslims who live in the West to engage in radical terrorist attacks. The events that we saw in Brussels, I'm not sure that this event is linked to Israel and Gaza conflict, but we see definitely an attempt by ISIS, especially by Al-Qaeda, to accelerate the motivation to target the Western and the Jewish targets in the West.
You know, Dr. Barak, we keep on saying that even when Hamas's military and governing capabilities are eliminated here in the Gaza Strip, the Hamas ideology is not going anywhere. Right. Can it find a place in Europe?
Hamas has managed to establish strongholds also in Europe and the United States. Let's remember that the one that is helping also to Hamas to strengthen these strongholds is Iran and Hezbollah. The international community was concerned about ISIS in the last few years, and in the meantime, Iran has established and cultivated these strongholds in South Africa and Europe. And this is something that the international community should engage and deal with, because these centers that Iran has established is being used by Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran in order to disseminate radical ideologies. In ICT institutions where I work, we published a very important document about a not familiar organization, international organization, which is called El Tajamu, which is an umbrella for Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, communist organization, and even academic people who are teaching in the West, like in Australia and United States. All of them are part of this axis. It doesn't matter now if you are fighter or not, but this axis, which managed to penetrate this organization, Tajamu, that is active also in the academy, the international community should do something very urgent about it.
And to that point exactly, Dr. Barak, briefly, if you can, before we let you go, there is indeed an anomaly, as you've put it, when it comes to modern European politics, the right versus the left, the right more pro-Israel, the left more anti-Israel, obviously more complex than that, the European street even more so. But in the EU, till this day, struggles to get a united message on Hamas's vicious attack. So how does it all play in the European political landscape?
So again, Hamas is not only a danger to Israel, but also a danger to the West. We see that this conflict is also been in the West. Of course, there is, again, it's very complicated thing now to explain, but we see alliance between Hamas to the red, which is radical lefts who justify Hamas brutal attacks. And this is something that Europe and United States should wake up about this alliance and do something about it.
Yeah, Jews, Israelis are always first. They're never the last, right? Dr. Michael Barak, head of research at Global Jihad and Palestinian Terrorism at the ICT. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.